Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Discovery Pod with Eve. We've got a very special episode today with Anne Fundner. We'll get into her background in a minute. I'm so excited to be hosting today's episode with my friend, actress, filmmaker, Kathy Kolla. Kathy is an actress and filmmaker whose work includes Arrested Development, American Dreams, Mr. Show with Bob and David, and other film and television roles. She's continued her career behind the cameras, directing and producing independent film projects. Kathy, welcome to the Discovery Pod with Eve. It's so good to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I am so honored to be here. Your podcast is wonderful. It's uplifting. And it's all about resilience. And, you know, I'm happy to support you. I support women who are creative and who are doing good with the arts, and you're doing good.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. So I think tell our audiences, what are you currently working on that you'd like to promote?
I am working on so many things. Do we have enough time in this episode to go on and on and on? But the one thing that I am always promoting and I want people to watch is my baby, my feature film, Who is Billy Bones? It is on Amazon Prime.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's about the whole punk rock scene here in LA, how it started. And it's about perseverance, never giving up.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. You know, this episode today is so emotional. And, you know, it's such an honor to introduce Anne Fundner, a mother, a wife, a woman of faith, and now a national voice for families devastated by the fentanyl crisis. On February 27th, 2022, Anne's 15-year-old son, Weston, passed away. In the days that followed, Anne did something most hearts could never imagine. She chose to speak. She chose to fight. And she chose to say Winston's name, out loud, so no other family would ever have to live what she lived. Anne is a mother of 5. She and her husband not only lost a son, yet 4 surviving children lost a brother. Their family lost the future they imagined. And overnight, everyday life became something they had to relearn. Since that day, Anne has spoken across the country, including testifying before Congress, not as a politician, not as a professional advocate, but as a mom trying to save other children. Her story is not only about loss. It's about love, legacy, and the quiet courage of a family learning how to breathe again. Today, we honor Winston, who he was, who he is to his family, and how his life continues to speak. Anne, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me on. That was really very beautiful. Thank you.
So, Anne, for those who never had the privilege of knowing Winston, who he was, what made him the son, the brother, the young man that your family loved so deeply, what would you like to share?
Weston was a very sweet kid. He had a heart of gold. He had a lot of friends. He was a good student. He loved God, played sports, loved to surf, played football and hockey. He just had an affinity for life, and he had a lot of fun experiences, and he didn't have any shortage of great experiences that I'm so grateful for that he got to do before he left this place. But he was just a really sweet kid, and he really cared about other people. He had a heart for empathy and just compassion for others that most people don't have. So I was very grateful that God gave me 15 beautiful years with him. And now I've lost the hardest thing to ever do as a parent is lose a child. And so now I don't ever want another parent to go through what we went through, because it is heart-wrenching. So you can't imagine. I don't want anyone to. So now I fight in his honor.
So I have a question for you, Anne. You know, obviously you are a warrior. You have been through something that no parent would want to go through. Your strength is unbelievable to me as a parent. The question I have is, well, first of all, before I ask the question, I watched some of your interviews, and I saw that you had this conversation with Weston about drugs, saying no to drugs, the effects of drugs and all that. And he knew you guys had talked openly about this, and yet still this happened, an accident happened. How do we protect our children? Obviously not getting, like, stopping the drug from coming into our country, yes, but at home, how do we stop this from happening to other families? And is there something the schools can do? I mean, because obviously you did everything you could do. What more could we do at home and in our community?
Well, I always talk to him since he was little about not doing drugs. You know, telling him about, how drugs are just something that if you get into, you won't be able to stop, and you'll fall twice as hard. And, pointing out situations. We lived in California. There's a lot of people, on the streets on drugs, pointing out situations like, this is why you don't do drugs, kids. And, just telling them about addiction and about just the dangers of death, of doing drugs. And he knew that it was something that, you don't do. And we raised our children, in Christian school and with good morals and values. So you have that not my kid attitude. No parent thinks that this is going to happen to their kid. They think their kids are going to be okay and they're going to, skate through it. What I underestimated was peer pressure. And I don't care how you raise your children. Kids are going to be pressured by other children. It's going to happen. 100% of kids get influenced by other kids, but you got to teach them to be strong in those moments. And I underestimated my headstrong, very confident child who had friends that loved to hang around with him because he was so confident and had a great personality. So I didn't think I had anything to worry about with him. But what I underestimated is at a brand new school, new crowd, older kids, influential, that he would have a hard time saying no, because he was always, a leader. And freshman year, it's a very impressionable year, and your social status is worth its weight in gold. And in the situation, he tried something that he thought was a Percocet. He had heard his doctor say it because he had hurt his hand a couple weeks earlier. The doctor and I both thought it was ridiculous to give kids pain meds, but it was an option if I wanted it. I said no. But he did offer to give him a prescription, but I did not allow it. So he had heard the word before, and he probably thought that if my doctor, it says it's okay, I could probably get away with it, and I don't have to look, like, I don't know what these kids think they look like if they say no to drugs, but he didn't want to, he didn't want to be the one that said no. And so he tried something, and it wasn't a Percocet. It was blue pressed powder and pure fentanyl, and my son was deceived to death. If he had tried a Percocet, he'd still be alive today. My son was deceived to death. And so what you need to tell your kids is that these are not the drugs that you're being told that they are, number one. Number two, never do anything that someone gives you that you didn't get from mom or your doctor, because you'll be alive tomorrow. And number three, I always tell parents, talk to your kids about peer pressure. That's what got my son. Peer pressure. Run scenarios, role play. What are you going to do if you're in a situation, there's a girl that you really like, she's really popular, you don't think maybe she's out of your league, but she's doing something, and you don't want to feel like pressured, and you can't, and you want to impress her. So what are you going to do? And teach them to say, it's not my thing, or my mom's coming to pick me up soon, or I drove, I got to be sober. Whatever it is that you guys come up with, role play it, because when that situation comes down to it, and it will, your kids are going to be in a situation at some point or another. We all were in high school, and many of us, caved to peer pressure, but we didn't die back then. But this is a different day. Once you run those scenarios, they will have all the necessary tools to be able to say no, because they would have practiced it. And let me tell you what else that's going to do. There's probably going to be other kids there that also don't want to do it, but feel the pressure. And that's going to give them an out too. No, I'm going home with him, or, I don't think I want to do it either. So now you're not only helping yourself survive another day, but you're also going to help other kids.
I love that. So it's not only about saying no to drugs and teaching about drugs, but it's also teaching about role playing, about how you can, just be strong and not give in to peer pressure, because I think just as humans, we want to fit in, we want to be accepted. And for children, it's hard. Way harder.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Even as an adult, there's that. I first of all got to thank you for being here with us today, because Roger had mentioned that you had an emergency. So thank you for. I hope everything is okay on you over there.
Thank you.
I am again so sorry about. I don't have kids, but I lost my mom and dad unexpectedly, and I cannot imagine that experience for you, your spouse, and your kids. How did you navigate grief?
No, I didn't navigate well for a while. It was almost immediate that I knew I wanted to fight, because I remember sitting a couple days after he died, just sitting on my couch, just thinking, there's no other feeling in the world as awful as this one. I'd rather stab my eyes with needles than go through the pain that I was going through. And I just remember sitting there going, I can't let another parent go through this. It hurts so much. Like, this is just, it's inhumane to allow a parent to feel this way. And I knew I was going to fight. It just took time. Over the next couple of years, I got involved with groups, and one specific group, Lost Voices of Fentanyl. It's a wonderful group, support for each other. We've all lost children or parents or grandkids or sisters. So it's a group of people who have lost, and it's really been, that was really something that held me up. And I called her one day, I go, I don't know, I got to do something. So I would love to be a moderator, or I got to figure something out. And so I started, really getting involved as one of the group's 10 people that really helps with everybody else. So I got involved with there's 40,000 people in this group. So I am one of 10 people that help run the group. And that was huge for me. It really gave me a purpose, and we fight. I mean, we fight for legislation and, just everything that you can think of in order to fight this fight. And that's been empowering. And for me, it was very healing. And then I got asked to speak at some very large audiences and help educate people. So now I just get in front of people as much as I can, excuse me, and educate. And I'd say in the past, even past 6 months, but even the past year has been a very healing journey for me, where I've stood up feeling like I'm getting somewhere. And really in the past 6 months, I just feel like it's a different journey. It's really about a journey of saving kids. And it's been very hopeful.
Thank you for everything that you're doing to
Thank
help
you.
other parents as well, and to help other kids.
Yes. And I believe speaking about it is healing, and that does help heal. Speaking of healing, how did your marriage, how did you two just not go completely separate and heal in your own ways? How did you as a team heal?
Well, I mean, I got to put everything to God, because the things that have, I've been blessed with in this journey, and been able to honor my son and, really put him, in a position of being memorialized in this fight has just been a blessing. And that's all to God. But God has also, been the piece that has kept my marriage together, because 90% of people after a child death get divorced. So I have a 10% chance of, making that work out. And it's not been easy. I will tell you, it's really hard. And you really do separate a lot. You're both feeling your own feelings, and you have your own, you know, inward feelings, and, you're focusing a lot on yourself, and everybody reacts really different. And the marriage does get cold. I'm not going to lie. I can't break my kid's heart again. They lost their leader. My kids, my son Weston was their leader. And, gosh, if I tore our family apart, that would just be something else that they couldn't handle. So we fight to keep our marriage together, but it's extremely challenging. And I just have to remember the vows I took, and, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer. And so I keep those vows and say, right now it's for worse. Maybe it's for poorer. Whatever it is right now, I made those vows and I'm going to fight. So that's what we're doing. And that's the only thing that's gotten us through is God.
So to piggyback on that question as well, because I can only imagine grief is one of the most difficult things. Some days you're fine, and other days you're like, I don't want to get out of bed. And you're out there, publicly educating everybody around the world, not just here in the US. What do you do for yourself just to help keep you, mentally zen as a mother, as a wife? And for yourself as well, just to help you go, you're still going through the healing journey. It is a journey. It's not something that someone is going to say, oh, grief is going to take a day, a minute. It's a process. So what do you do for yourself to keep you mentally zen when things are feel overwhelming for you?
Well, like journaling or meditating or yoga.
I wish I could say something that I do something like that. I know everyone wants to hear this therapeutic answer. I just keep going. I just keep fighting. It's in me. I know that I'm doing it for my son and for my kids and for your kids and for everybody. And I just keep going because people need to know that this can happen to you. So for me, it's about just what's the next thing I can book? What's the next media, piece I can talk about? What's the next thing that I can educate people about this? How can I just keep going? So for me, the therapy is in the fight. She says. I wish I could tell you I did yoga. Great. I wish I did yoga.
That's it though. Fighting and doing something and speaking, and that's therapeutic for you. That's incredible because you're making a difference. And you spoke of faith, and how did this challenge your faith? Did it compromise it? Yeah.
Absolutely. I shook my fist up at God many times. I have thought that I don't know that I will still be in God's good graces with some of the things I've said. I have really had some hard conversations and been really probably too brutal on the things that I've said. Why would you take my son? This is, somebody that I love more than life itself. You have this little baby, and you for the first time in your life, you understand love. And not only that, but you have this little baby that's looking at you, and you understand that they love you more than anything else in this world. And that never goes away in the relationship of a mother and child. And, it was gone. And I didn't understand. We'd been, we'd been faithful. We went to church, we were, we went to church on Wednesdays and Sundays and Christian schooled our kids. And, why are you doing this to us? And so those conversations with God were not easy for the first probably year and a half. But I guess to really be angry with him and shake my fist at him and even say things that I didn't mean, or maybe I did at the time, I absolutely meant them. I really, say I was turning my back, but I never did, because I guess to acknowledge him and to be angry with him and yell at him is to still know that he is God, because I'm having these conversations with him, right? So he's still God to me, and he knows that. And to me, he's like your father. You can't make your parents just do anything to upset them. Like, they're always going to love you no matter what you do. And I think that's God's love. And eventually things weren't working. It wasn't going my way, and everything in life seemed to snowball and fall apart. And every time we could get back up on our feet, we'd get knocked down again. And I just said, I surrender, God. I can't do this. And I know I've been awful to you, but I was mad. And that faith, that really strong faith, is when I stood up and started putting my faith back in God, is when things started happening. It was literally a week later that I was asked to speak in front of millions of people, that I feel like changed the trajectory of this fight when I recommitted my relationship to God. So I do believe that God is the reason.
That's powerful. I'm going to go back to something you had talked about earlier. I don't know when this episode is going to air, but I'm also going to say we're going into a very difficult time for a parent. I'm not a parent, but I can only imagine what the holidays are for you, knowing that you lost Winston, and Thanksgiving and the holidays. How is that for you? And then also for your kids? It's a twofold. With your younger kids, what do you do to protect them from this happening to them? The peer pressure.
Well, I mean, so the holidays are really difficult. He's not there to, watch open presents with big wide eyes and, excitement. And he's not there at the dinner table, and that's really hard. We pray, we say grace, and we always mention, hold our baby and take care of him until we're there. His birthday just passed on Monday. That was really, really very challenging for me. So he'd be a freshman in college now. So this happened freshman in high school, and now he would now be in college in freshman year. So the holidays, birthdays, the day he died, watching my kids graduate, watching them, announce what colleges they were going to, seeing them at their proms, homecomings, that's all really hard. And I know I'm going to have to deal with marriages and children, and probably one day watch them have grandchildren, and just know that this is where my son would be at. It's hard. And while I'm so happy for them, I wish I could have that for my son. I'd trade everything, I'd live under a bridge if I could have my son back, but I can't. So you just got to get through the holidays and think about the kids that you have now. Know that God's got this, and there's a reason, and this life is but a blip, and I'll see him again. So I just try to focus on my kids and focus on this fight, and keep moving forward.
Well, speaking of your other children, how did you manage them dealing with the grief, and how were they, and how are they doing now?
It's definitely changed our entire family. I'm honestly, there's nothing easy about this. They miss him. He was their leader too. They loved him so much, and he loved all of them so much. He was their big brother, and he really played a very special part in each one of their lives. So they're devastated too. And plus, we've kind of been uprooted from our old life. We felt like we needed a new start. That uprooted them from what they knew. They're in a new place. We actually traveled for a year. We said, we need to just, everywhere I looked, everywhere all of us looked, we saw Weston, he should be riding his bike. He should be over there with his friends. We'd drive by the beach he loved to surf at. It was painful. So I said, let's go on a trip and get to really heal together. So we traveled it was actually about 9 months. We ended up on the East Coast where we grew up. So that's where we are now. And, it's been hard for them because they've had to make new friends, and they miss their old friends, and they miss their life in California. And they miss their brother tremendously. My middle child is now the oldest, and my second middle child is now the middle child for real. And then my youngest is he's just having to ride the coattails of what else everybody else is trying to figure out in this life and navigate through. It's hard. There's nothing easy about this. I mean, honestly, I wish I could give you some warm and fuzzy outlook. I know they're going to be okay. As far as like, I have them in a Christian school, therapy wise. They did therapy for a little while in the beginning. We're just taking each day as it comes. If I feel like, they need anything further, we seek what we need when it comes, because for this, it's a personal journey for each of them.
And also, I feel like they see their mother out there fighting and having a voice, which is a good example to them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
So, what have you learned about, love since losing Winston? The kind of love that keeps living, even, when he's gone.
I can't, I'm so sorry.
What
I
have you
hate to
learned
make you-
about love since losing Winston?
Weston? What have I learned? I think I learned about love when I gave birth to Weston, because it was an automatic connection that I'll never forget, just holding him and seeing him breathe, and he was breathing fast. And in an instant, I was, filled with love and joy for this little thing that I was holding. And he was breathing fast. And so fear set in. And I knew that I was never going to rest. The rest of my life, I was always going to, worry about this little amazing child. So, you have every emotion that comes in: fear, love, joy. The biggest part was love and joy, but I just knew that life was never going to be the same, because I was this baby's protector, and he was going to be my everything. And he was. Weston was my everything, my first child, my first experience as a mother. He made me a mom. The first scraped knee, the first room mom. Gosh, I think of all the things I did with him. And it's just, I experienced everything that really, the meaning of life. And I will never forget that about him. He is such a beautiful place in my heart. The love that I have for him is unexplainable. And I have to believe that it's the same love that God has for us. And even more. And then I'm going to get to have that love again with him one day, when I see him again.
That's beautiful.
That
And
is
you
beautiful.
will see him
Yeah.
again. And I'm sure I have those chills. Like, I didn't know him, but you talking about Weston just makes me feel like his presence is around us. So it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
So you spoke before Congress. I would like to hear a little bit about that. And also, are there any charities or organizations in his name that people can donate to or
That's so
help?
nice of you.
Yeah.
That's so nice of you. Right now, I haven't done an organization yet, because I'm still actively involved in Lost Voices of Fentanyl. And my gosh, they would love the donations, because we do a lot. And it's like everything else. Most organizations are underfunded. What I have right now is Forever Weston Foundation. It will be about peer pressure and teaching parents as well as children about the peer pressures. I really want an organization like that eventually. But I have a scholarship fund for Weston on Give, Send, Go, where if what I've been doing is a scholarship for kids who maybe they're the underdog, or maybe they're, dealing with challenges, something where, they don't even have to be the best student, but they want to better themselves, and they've shown they could better themselves. And so I asked the kids to write an essay, like, how have you come through adversity, and what did you do to get through that adversity? And I try to reward kids with scholarships, or help them with scholarships to go to college and better themselves and keep bettering themselves. So that's on Give, Send, Go, and that's under the Weston Fundner Scholarship. I think I forget what it is, but it's a Weston Fundner Scholarship. So that really, that blesses others. And I really like that. But thank you for asking me that.
Of course, yes. And anything that educates and that can help.
Of course.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
such an
Lost Voices of
important.
Fentanyl is definitely in the education piece. Some great organizations out there that I work with, Fentanyl Fathers, Victoria's Voice, really, strong organizations that help a lot with many different facets of this fight.
Yeah, I feel like if there were children that maybe came into the school, or there was some type of organization where maybe teens or young adults who have been through situations like that can talk to the maybe preteens or,
Yes.
middle-aged school kids. And
you're nailing it right on the head. That's
because they look up to their peers, or they look up to people that are like them, and they don't want to hear what parents have to say. They want to hear what children who have been through it have to say, and how they said no, and how they, didn't let peer pressure take over. So I think something like that could be really helpful.
Oh, yeah.
So that's Forever Weston Foundation, and that's something that I'm in the midst of setting up. And we have peer-to-peer, and that's something that's been lost. Like I had when I was growing up, they didn't have peer-to-peer. That is one of the things that I focus on. So it's really, when I say you're hitting the nail on the head, it really is, because peer-to-peer is so important. It's important that these kids hear it from somebody else, and they can relate to someone their age. So you really did hit the nail on the head. And then I educate parents about peer pressure, because I know you think your child's perfect and you've done everything perfectly. We got Weston braces, and he had tutors, and he was, had a beautiful life, and he was going to succeed. I was going to make sure of it, and he was going to have a great smile, and everything we did, well checks, making sure he went to the dentist for the cleanings, everything. And yet, fentanyl still found my son. So peer pressure is the thing that I like to talk about, because most parents have not my kid syndrome, and that's really, something that's extremely important. And that peer-to-peer piece that all these high schools had gotten rid of, that they had in the 80s, that they no longer have, is such a strong program. So that is part of Forever Weston. I'm glad that you said that. Forever Weston Foundation will be up and rolling eventually, but it's hard to get a 501c3 up and going. So until I do, those are the other organizations and his scholarship that I'm working on. But thank you. That's absolutely 100%. I agree with you.
So just looking at the world today and everything that you're doing, speaking out there, educating parents and schools, what gives you hope today?
I just know that there's an army of parents out there. There's an Angel Army. That's another organization. There's an Angel Army that's out there going into the schools, educating. We believe that if the schools aren't going to educate on this, because most of them don't, and this is the number one killer of teens at this point, and it's the fastest growing killer of a demographic 14 and under. So schools really need to be doing more. The education piece is so important. There is an army of parents that, and Greg Swan, who has Fentanyl Fathers, goes into the schools, and he just opened Angel Army so that kids can hear from parents who have lost children. And that is something that I think has been so profound and so strong.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about fentanyl, but I do know, I watched one of your interviews, and you were saying that if your child or anyone tries it, if they don't die from it, that they will die eventually, because it is just, 300 times more addictive than crack. I mean, it's
50.
Yeah.
Yep. But that's not even it. I mean, there's a whole generation coming up behind it. Nitazene's 100 times stronger than fentanyl. Adenosines, isonitazines. It's crazy how many things are coming up behind it that are xylazines, much more potent than fentanyl, carfentanil. There's a whole generation of drugs coming up behind it, hidden in little pills that your kids don't know what it is. They're hiding it in vapes. They're sprinkling it in marijuana. These kids have this idea that if they smoke pot, that it's not going to happen.
It's scary, because
it can.
What about they could put it in food? I mean, this is a scary thing.
Yeah.
It is scary. The possibilities are endless. There's a group that tests, how far can this go? It can be used as a weapon of mass destruction. And we're actually fighting to make it classified as a weapon of mass destruction, because who's to say it can't be used as a weapon? Someone doesn't want someone around anymore. Let's just put fentanyl in their drink. It's happening. They're using it as date rape drugs, and there was someone that was just arrested because she ran out of her date rape drugs so she could rob people, and she put fentanyl in instead, and the guy died. So it can absolutely be misused.
Wow.
It's already being misused. When you're fooling people into taking something they don't know what's there, that's murder, and it's Weston's investigation was a murder investigation.
Oh,
When we
wow.
heard that, I'll tell you, that hit our hearts. We already knew our son died, but to hear that it was a murder investigation, a homicide, that was eye-opening. These kids, it's a murder investigation because people don't know it's there. And if you ate something somebody made you and it had cyanide in it, and you thought you were eating, something that, it was supposed to be one thing, but really it was a bunch of flour and cyanide, and you died, you were poisoned, you were murdered. So this is no different. So, it is not a matter of if you are going to die. It's when I said that, because it's 50 times more addictive than crack, 100 times stronger than morphine. And you have these drug groomers. These aren't your parents, back in the day where they'd find somebody who could supply them with a little bit of marijuana. These drug dealers are, this is a business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. And they know how to groom your children. Just like a sexual predator or a gang member, they have their ways of grooming children into it where they feel like they're trapped. So they'll get them to try a little bit, knowing how potent and how horrible those withdrawal symptoms are going to be. And once those withdrawal symptoms hit after the first time of trying, they say, you can't tell your parents, I'm going to get arrested. You might get arrested and go to jail. What are your parents going to say then? But if you just take a little bit more, we can take that edge off. And while they talk your children into an addiction, your child is hoping they're getting out of it. So now you have a child that's addicted that never wanted an addiction. And at that point, some kids, if they're still alive, try to tell their parents. But other kids will just cope with it. And this drug dealer, basically he's groomed them into it. And now he's, gotten your child, you can be really in a bullying position to just keep buying from him and holding that over their head until your child's dead. And no, they don't care if your child's dead. They don't care if their client's dead, because they just have to get somebody else to try it. And in every drug bust at a routine traffic spot where they find $40,000 to $400,000 worth of little blue pills, I can show you why they don't care if your child dies, because there is no shortage of other people behind them. And it's about money, and it's disgusting. I actually have Weston's Law. It's a bill. And we followed a lot of the language that anti-gang bills follow. And also a lot of bills that are anti-sexual predator bills, because that same grooming behavior you see happening with these very well-trained drug traffickers these days. And it's very sad. So that's just a whole nother part to this whole thing. It's evil. There's nothing, this is evil on every front. This,
it is
fentanyl and how they're pushing it. And, it's just, that's another side to it. And it's all awful.
And thank you for sharing and really educating us. I mean, I don't have kids, but I think just comparing it to a sexual predator brings it home. Like, kids are vulnerable, and you've got all of those people out there reaching out to kids, and it's a horrible thing. And so thank you for using your platform and just educating the public, the world. I see Roger holding the sign up there. We've got 3 minutes. So the last question is, with everything that you're doing out there to educate the world, your family, and all the if you were to have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
If I could have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive,
who would it be?
I don't know that. Well, my son and Jesus would definitely be
yes
at the forefront of that. I've been very blessed to have dinner with a lot of people that I really care about in this fight. So, that would be my son. I would love to see him again, for sure. My father and Jesus. That would be my 3.
That's incredible. Anne, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing Winston's journey, not as a headline, but as your son. Your joy, your love, your courage honors him, and your voice gives strength to families who are grieving in silence. Thank you so much. Kathy, this has been such, I don't even know the words to use to
It's
describe.
been emotional and educational, and we support you. Thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm sure you're an inspiration to your children.
Yeah.
And you're doing great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, for
appreciate
hosting
it.
with me. Anne, thank you so much for being with us. Roger, thank you for producing. Bree back there, thank you for behind the cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, what an incredible, very inspirational, just a very powerful episode to help everyone going through grief. Please remember to watch the Discovery Pod with Eve every Thursday at 12 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube or wherever podcast is available. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Anne.